Now, with more on this developing story, we are pleased to be joined once again by retired Air Force General Michael Hayden. Mike also served as the director of the CIA and the NSA during his time in government service. Mike, it is so good to have you back here on America's Forum.
Thank you, JD.
To the extent you could tell us what your day would be like if you were director of the CIA this morning, what would you be doing?
Well, first of all, I would have had a long conversation with Paris Station, made sure we were doing everything possible to help our French counterpart, DGSE. If his schedule permitted it, I would have given the Director General of DGSE a call, offer condolences and any and all assistance that we might be able to deliver. Then I'd huddle up with my guys and simply say, what do we have that would enlighten both our and French knowledge of this attack? That's kind of looking backwards, kind of attack assessment. And then we quickly move to looking forward. Can we expect this here? Is it likely we'll see copycats? Are there other groups out there who might try these same techniques? And then after that, JD, you just let the facts take you where they will.
Fair enough, Mike. Now, you have made other media appearances on MSNBC's Morning Joe. You connected this to the Edward Snowden controversy and the whole concept of metadata. Can you repeat that link for our audience and where you're coming from on that?
Sure. I mean, look, one of the things the French will come to us almost certainly and ask is they continue their investigation. They're going to come across different communications devices. And they know that NSA does magnificently collecting metadata in a variety of areas around the world. And a lot of people were hyperventilating about that 6, 12, or 18 months ago, that right now it doesn't look dangerous, it looks real useful. And the French are going to come to us and ask us, is in that ocean of metadata that you have collected, do these new numbers that we've just discovered associated with these people, do these new numbers show up? And what have they been doing? With whom have they been in contact? And that point I made on Morning Joe, and I was delighted to make it on MSNBC, JD, was that, we did that stuff for a reason. We did it to keep you safe, not to invade your privacy.
Fair enough, Mike. Now, as we hear about these suspects, one of these brothers apparently was arrested in 2008, sentenced to 3 years in prison for recruiting young men to join al-Qaeda to battle in Iraq. Does this say to you that this was more than a lone wolf attack?
I don't know. And obviously one of the things that I would have had my guys looking for is there connective tissue between this small group in France and any larger global jihadist organization? But JD, I think I would have also cautioned my guys with, these guys were never a hierarchy. They were never under tight command and control. Even back in the day of al-Qaeda, which now looks like your grandfather's terrorist group, even back in the day of al-Qaeda, you had empowered nodes that could go out and act. And I think it's even more of a network today. So we may never find the sealed operations order coming out of Raqqa, Syria, to these guys in the 19th arrondissement in Paris. The organizational structure is going to be a lot looser. And frankly, JD, that makes our job a bit tougher. There are fewer communications to pick up that cue us and clue us.
Fair enough, Mike. Listen, we appreciate the fact that you are going to stay with us through this break to talk more about what transpired yesterday, what it may mean for us here at home, and parallels between Paris yesterday and Boston a couple of years back in terms of brothers being involved in an act of terror. There is more with General Michael Hayden still to come here on America's Forum. You stay with us as well on this day after the Paris terror attacks here on Newsmax TV. Let's continue our conversation now with retired Air Force General and former NSA and CIA Director Michael Hayden. Mike, as always, we really appreciate your time. And you were with us yesterday as the story was unfolding. And you talked about liberties such as freedom of expression and how those who are civil libertarians may have more in common with the intelligence community than some of them seem to believe. You want to expound some on that?
Sure. Look, I've always made the case, JD, that we all come from the same value pool. We all read the Federalist Papers. We all know why we went about organizing our government. And frankly, the differences between us, although we fight over them a lot, there may be less difference there than meets the eye. Let me drive home the point. If we cannot defend journalists and other people who are speaking their mind against these kinds of terrorist attacks, free speech, a freedom will suffer. And so when the American security services go about their business, they're just not protecting American security. They're protecting American liberty. And let me draw the circle one more time around, JD. People have a right to life. And when people are frightened, when security services cannot provide them a basic level of security, they make dumb decisions when it comes to balancing security and liberty. And so if I don't do my job well, if I don't play up to the full extent that the law gives me authority, and bad things happen, the American people are going to make decisions that are going to be at the expense of their liberty. And so the success of CIA and NSA is essential to American freedom as it is to American safety.
And while you talk about a fear that an overreaction to a real crackdown and suppression might result if intelligence agencies were not able to do their job, there are probably some changes coming here in the United States in the wake of what happened yesterday in Paris. As you review what happened there yesterday and take a look at what's happening here with our own homeland, any major changes that come to mind immediately for you?
Actually, JD, no. And people like me have looked at this problem now for 3 or 4 years. Mike Leiter used to have the National Counterterrorism Center, and I talked about this, again, 3 or 4 years ago. And our prognosis is that future attacks against our homeland are going to be smaller, less well-organized, less likely to succeed, less lethal, even if they did succeed, compared to 9/11. They're just going to be more numerous. But the tools we have to go after these individualized, small group, self-radicalized, self-motivated, low-threshold attacks, the tools we have there are fairly limited. And unless you really want to change the rules of the game, JD, some of this stuff is just going to happen, as sad as that is.
General, to the layman who looks at headlines, we saw what happened to the Boston Marathon with a bombing there, a pair of brothers. Now, we see what happened in Paris, a pair of brothers. Would these loose-knit organizations probably feature family members like the brothers we've seen both in Paris and in Boston?
They could very well. I mean, we've seen those kinds of relationships even inside the United States with regard to criminal organizations. I mean, these things, well, in their own perverse way, are based on trust, and those family ties might give would-be perpetrators a sense of protection that they wouldn't have dealing with someone outside the family.
So family, community, about 30 seconds, Mike. Peter King, my old colleague, is saying there has to be surveillance inside mosques in the United States. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And I understand all the arguments about religious liberty, but we have a right to keep ourselves safe. Now, we should go to our Islamic communities and give them the strong message that this is not us making war on them. This is us protecting their youth from predatory jihadists who will recruit them for these kinds of activities. This is for the benefit of American Islam.
Fair enough. Michael Hayden, we appreciate those insights. There is more straight ahead on America's Forum, including Waleed Farris, so stay with us.